2. And we're on. Welcome. Hi. Happy Monday Sunday. To the Monday. Is it not the Monday Sunday?
Yeah, I will.
It's like holiday weekend Sunday,
Why not?
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Sunday is really more the last day before you go to work, rather than it being any other given day. In my book, do you agree or disagree?
No, absolutely. We are. I assume we're both amongst those lucky individuals who do get this day off.
We are both lucky individuals who receive this day as a day of respite from those things to which we labor over all days and every other day. But here we labor for you, our audience, in, again, the Speaker's Corner, where there's only two of us today, but I'd rather have two of us than none of us.
Oh,
So here we are. The core of this event today will be held up by Tom Holm out of New York
Hi,
and
how's it
Jeff
going?
Wheeler out of Johns Creek. Although, of course, I should say Flushing, Queens. No, Woodside, Queens.
Woodside.
Woodside,
Although, every time somebody put my zip code in, it wants to say that I'm in Flushing, which is 2 neighborhoods over. I don't know why.
Well, I think that
Flushing.
people outside of New York don't understand that that's a long way. 2 neighborhoods.
It's pretty far.
Yeah. I mean, you walk when you're up there, so that takes some time to do.
And Queens is that weird area where we're the only ones that actually label, like the Bronx. The address is just Bronx, New York, a zip code.
Oh.
Brooklyn is just Brooklyn, New York zip code. Manhattan is New York, New York. Staten Island, who cares? But Queens, your address is your neighborhood, so it's Long Island City, New York, Astoria, New York, Flushing, Corona, Queen of
Oh,
Corona.
really? So Queens as a borough you don't really have Queens as a address.
You could probably mail a letter to Queens, New York, and eventually it would get to the proper address.
Mm-hmm.
But most everyone says Jamaica, Queens, or Flushing, Queens.
Gotcha.
But it would be Jamaica, New York, as what you put for your address.
Wow.
Random fact.
Well, and really, I think it comes down to the arbitrary nature of mail in general. And
Yeah.
I mean, really, if there's not an @ sign after the mail, then I'm not sure it's ever going to get there, really, anyway.
Yeah, I always think my parents are in, even when Florida. My parents live in Weeki Wachee, but you could send mail to either Weeki Wachee or Brooksville
Right.
as the city. It would
Or
still
if
get
you
to
put
them.
if you put in North Pole and put in the correct zip code, it'll get there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Because
can try that.
it's all electronically sorted, right? So it looks for the zip code. It doesn't care what city you put.
And those extra 4 characters on your zip code that you can put at the end, completely useless. Doesn't mean anything.
What do you mean?
As a joke. It's a joke from Seinfeld. Never mind.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Should I have watched Seinfeld?
You never watched Seinfeld?
I did watch it like twice. It was pretty funny.
It disgusts me.
Is there like I think there's some sort of like coffee shop going on somewhere? Is there a coffee shop involved?
There's a diner.
A diner,
You're
yeah, that's
thinking
what
of
it is.
Friends had the coffee shop.
Yeah, okay.
Seinfeld had the diner.
Okay. Friends had a coffee. Oh, yeah, the Central Perk on Friends.
Very good. Good memory, because you obviously have seen that more than
Nope.
2 episodes, apparently. No. But
Yes, I've seen that.
you've seen every episode twice. That's
Nope,
the reality.
nope. But I did look at Jennifer Aniston once or twice. So yeah. So let's move to something a little more topical to what we've got going on. Let's think. There were a couple of elections since the last time we met.
Yeah.
Should we speak about those?
There's actually been 3, I think, 3 important elections since we last spoke.
Oh yeah,
There was I don't think we talked about the Indian election.
Indian election. We did not, but it
Indian
made the front of
election.
The Economist.
It did.
It made the front of The Economist.
The
Wasn't this a
Ukrainian
guy
election.
that was not expected to win?
No, he was expected to win, but the margin by which they won was not foreseen. They were pretty sure was it the BJP, the Hindu Nationalist Party,
Okay.
which has been in opposition, was going to win, but they didn't realize that they were going. No one was predicting. No one was predicting they were going to have a clear majority. It's the first. I think even the Congress Party, which is the outgoing party,
Mm-hmm.
they are the only party ever to have a clear majority, and they haven't had one since I think they said 1960. So this is the first clear majority in almost like half a century, and it's by the opposition. So no one was predicting. They were pretty sure there was going to be a change of power, but they probably assumed it was going to be the BJP would have to like cobble together with some other parties, but they don't have to. They're about 2 seats in the majority. Yeah, so there was that election. There was the Ukraine election, which was in the eastern provinces, right, like Donetsk and a few of the others, the kind of pro-Russian center. The West was saying, don't do it. Russia was kind of like, meh. And what did they vote to do? They voted to become more autonomous. They voted to become... You wrote it down, Jeff. What happened?
What? I wrote something down.
You wrote down your Ukraine election. What happened?
Oh, I know nothing. I just know that it existed, and I watched the CNBC debate where
Yes.
Putin was asked repeatedly about things about the Ukrainian election, and basically his only cogent response was, "Yes, there will be a Ukrainian election on Thursday," and that's pretty much what he was saying.
Wow, that sounds like him.
Yeah, and
I did see
he
it
was
for-
just completely dismissive of what's going on there. But this brought up on that, I hate to go on a tangent, but that's kind of what we do.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do. So they were speaking on CNBC about what he was saying and how he was saying it, and they basically said, well, he's in such a political position that if at any moment he would get out of power, he would be almost immediately tried for corruption or treason or some sort of other crime against the state, right?
Oh,
so
really?
his only real strength is to stay in power and stay important. And so the best way to do that in the eyes of the people is to constantly create conflict and to create a sense of urgency and emergency.
That's there's like 3 quotes coming to mind that made me think of that.
Go ahead.
Was it the Khmer said it? The quickest way to make the people do the bidding of the leader is to convince them they're under attack and denounce pacifists for lack of patriotism.
Denounce pacifist for what now?
Is the easiest way to make the people do your bidding, your bidding, is to convince them they're under attack and
Yep.
denounce pacifists for lack of patriotism.
That's exactly right.
Hermann Goering,
Ah.
Yeah. famous quote, which circulated around the early aughts when they talked about George Bush and the Iraq War, but could be easily applied to Putin. And obviously what he does with, the xenophobia that he's stirred up consistently, even under his previous position as president, when it was stirred up against Chechen activists and even some of the anti-Kazakh, anti-Turkic people pogroms, basically, that have been going on as an easy way to whip up a frenzy, distract people from their own misery and direct it towards another. But every country does it, unfortunately. Every person in power does it, unfortunately.
So what else did we get in the European Union? Didn't they also have elections?
Oh, it's a perfect segue because it's very much the same thing. So yes, in Europe they had the European Union elections. This is for the members of the European Parliament, which has been growing in power. Some to Brussels / Strasbourg / I can't remember the third city that they rotate the European Union through, but
Brussels,
Strasbourg, and I can't remember what the third site is. It's one of the most expensive things is the European Union moves around between the 3 cities. Imagine if DC
had to pick up and leave.
Twice a year. It was moving
Twice a
from-
year?
So imagine within a year, the U.S. Congress met in D.C., but then proceeded to also move to New York for 3 months, and then move to Atlanta for
LA.
3 months. Or L.A., yeah, probably more so. Just imagine the logistics of what that would cost. Meanwhile, you have buildings that sit vacant and unused. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Is the moving of the European Union. What we're here to talk about is the election, which, much as people had predicted, because the European Union elections are, even though it does have a lot of power and significance, it kind of plays out like our midterm elections, i.e., low voter turnout, and your more rabid, angry voters show up. So, given that.
So that's when the parties really discrepance themselves. They create that division during the midterms, and then everybody seems to come back, and then they just kind of hourglass their way down the line, if you will.
Right. So at this European Union election, huge gains for the, ironically, the anti-EU parties. So the UKIP, the UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, got 28% of the vote. They're now the majority representation, beating out. They're the first place party, beating out. I think actually the Labour came in second, and the Conservative Party, Tory, came in third. Liberal Democrats almost got completely wiped out. They got like one ministerial position. But even so, UKIP is a very anti-immigrant party, very pro. I take that back. They're more of Eurosceptic, anti-EU, but also anti-immigrant. More frighteningly, was also coming in first place in France was the National Front, which used to be kind of jackbooted stormtrooper-looking guys, but under Marine Le Pen has kind of softened the edges, but it's still anti-immigrant, anti-Islamic, anti-European Union. And then again, the Netherlands, Poland, even in Greece, the Golden Dawn, which is a neo-Nazi organization, came in strong votes. So a little bit scary, a little bit concerning. Again, it's the equivalent of, you can't use that as a bellwether for the direction that Europe is going as a whole.
But you can say something about the tendencies that people are interested in. What resonates,
Yeah. And so a lot of far right and also some far left, but heavily Eurosceptical organizations, the anti-immigrant, anti-U.S. even, which that's when we matters to us, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I could care less about anything else, really.
Yeah. So it was a fascinating turn of events. Much like the Indian election, people knew it was going to probably go this way, but no one really expected how much so it was going to go.
Gotcha.
That direction.
Gotcha.
So I think it was one of those. They don't have Silver. Who was the guy? The New York Times statistician, Nate Silver. Nate Silver.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to know any of that answer.
The guy who accurately predicted down to like the county how the 2012 election was going to go.
Really?
Maybe not down to the county, but he really.
But he nailed it.
He nailed it, much to everyone else's chagrin, because they was like, "Oh no, his numbers are wrong." He's like, "No, he
got
equivalent of sabermetrics for elections."
Yeah.
So a lot of people who kind of, maybe Europe needs a Nate Silver. They need someone who can actually tell us how these elections are going to go. So.
I don't know. But all right. Well, that's interesting to know about the European election. I knew none of this. And so it's education to me.
Yeah.
By my better read colleague. My better read colleague.
Oh,
but speaking of something you didn't necessarily need to read, recently there was a tragedy that happened here in our United States. And so therefore it's something that we should probably speak at some measure. There was a shooting by a student out in California. And I say shooting, but really I mean that he went on a killing rampage by a couple of different means. Are you familiar with this, Tom?
I have read about it, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it seems to be acted upon as a call to arms for those who are attempting to adjust the weapons policy here in the United States. The gun rights or non-gun rights activists are kind of prepping up on this particular event, stating that it is a good or it is not a good idea based on this particular instance. And I guess I might want to discuss on that for a minute. If you had any outstanding comments, I could certainly let you say them first. If not, I will give my diatribe.
Sure. Well, I saw it when you put this on the list. I thought you were going to talk about, and maybe we can talk about a different aspect that I think is more interesting, and it's not necessarily the because we've had the conversation about weapons and gun restrictions, but I think what has the most interesting thing, it pains me to use these words about it like a tragedy. Oh, that's interesting. It's like, no, this is serious. You can't.
The most evocative of discussion.
Interesting sounds like a flippant word.
Right.
One of the very interesting kind of things to come from this was, I thought what you were going to bring up was the Yes All Women hashtag.
What? I didn't even know this. What?
Oh, this is much more interesting, which has been, there's been a growing conversation online, but it's not about gun violence. It is specifically about violence towards women. And the Yes All Women is it's a play on the Not All Men meme, which I think is, guys.
I don't know any of this.
Well, there's a meme that's out there apparently. It's like, not all men, think about the friend zone. They're not, basically kind of like, it's not all us. The Yes All Women is kind of flipping that around in his head, saying, yes, all women have to walk through a parking lot holding their keys in their hand. Not because they want to get in the car quickly, but
because they need it as a weapon. Right.
As a weapon, because men will rape them. Really using, jumping on the, apparently because this motivation of this guy was his misogynistic anger towards women because he was a
didn't
virgin
get laid,
and no
basically.
one would lay him.
Yeah.
But kind of saying, let's stop writing these off as, oh, the guy was just a madman, and say, no, he is the culmination of a very misogynistic society that allows for this to happen on a large scale. I mean, there is, a culture of violence towards women in this country.
Well, now,
he
killed 2 women and 2 men.
Sure, fine, but his motivation in his YouTube testimonial videos was, I'm going to kill all sorority women because I can't get laid.
Right.
What the results of his action are, that's one thing or another. I mean, that's to say, oh, that guy hated Muslims, but he killed Sikhs. That isn't to say, well, that doesn't mean there's an anti-Muslim. No, it doesn't. Violence is violence. The motivation of violence is what matters. But I think it was that's what I thought we were going to talk about. Is I think what's coming out of, I'm seeing more interesting coming out of this is not necessarily a rehash of the argument about gun violence and gun rights in this country, but really is, let's talk about this culture of violence towards women in general. And if you look at the statistics, if you're a woman in this country, you are more likely to be a victim of a lot of things that men aren't. And everything from just standard discrimination or discrimination in the office, all the way to sexual violence, sexual harassment.
Okay, so my angle that I was going to go into was basically the gun violence and the guns and the knives and all of this stuff that was messed with wasn't, to me, where the problem lied. The problem lies in the individual and how he was broken and what society warped into his brain that made him feel like he needed to go on this rampage, which I think is not too far off from where you're headed.
Yeah,
with all of this.
No, I think it's right in line.
So my point is regardless, you're talking about the tools of what he did his problem to society based on, but if you have the problem of somebody who is maladjusted to the society in which we live, then it's going to lash out in some way at some time in some manner, regardless of what tool he's got to use. So my argument to do anything to solve this is to attack the root of where that problem is, and our society doesn't do a good job of teaching children, some things are not going to work out. Because we do a bit of that, well, if you try hard, the whole rom-com concept, well, if you try hard enough, even the ugly kid is going to get the girl, right? You try hard enough, and any kid can get an A in class. Well, that's not, everybody can't be the CEO of their corporation. Everybody can't go down that road. The best girl in school is not going to go for every guy because that's unrealistic. It's just not the way that things actually work. And so I guess my concept is to get back to pragmatism and to foster a society of how to encourage people to feel and think and know things in a perspective, give them these senses of entitlement.
I'm gonna go. I'm on a similar, and I may not be on the same page with you, but I'm in the same book or chapter with you, which is again to the entitlement thing is, and that's where I get to this, the institutionalized misogyny.
But misogyny is not new.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But it's the entitled misogyny.
It's the same thing. I'm saying the entitlement is that's part of the if you look through some of these yes all women hashtags that people are putting out is yes all women because just because I wore that outfit doesn't mean I should get raped or that means you can play grab ass with me. I mean there's that kind of like we've allowed this mature society to kind of go well if you dress provocative something's going to happen. No. That makes absolutely no sense, and yet there are people who kind of go, well, she did have a couple of drinks. No, why is it suddenly the constant thing is why are we universities spend more time teaching girls how to avoid getting raped and not teaching men don't fucking rape people.
Yes,
and that's
I'm with you on that, but it's 5 times more likely for a man to not make it to his 30th birthday than it is for a woman, based on violence.
Okay.
In this country. And most of it is because men are being stupid around other men. Doing dumb things and
that's
ending
not violence. Is that are you saying that's
and it's most of those
motorcycling and
most of those statistics are from black on black crime in high crime neighborhoods and those kinds of things that you don't even read about in the newspaper because they're so common and frequent, or people doing stupid things or whatever that end up killing somebody else that they're riding with, or et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of flaws, or there are, I guess that's not a perfect thing that somebody is going to be a victimed crime, but women are more likely to be in a victimed crime versus, well, I can't even say that, but that concept of what gets on the news is the girl who gets picked up in her apartment complex, somebody followed her, busted down her door, broke in, and raped and killed her. That gets on the news a lot more than 2 idiots went out on a boat and drowned in the middle of the on Memorial Day because they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah,
and
but it's
drive it right.
The reason, but there are so many things that happen between nothing and there are so many tears between nothing and the woman violently assaulted and possibly murdered. There is the harassment in the bar. There's the inappropriate comment on the street. There's the all this kind of tiered up things, which has created this culture that's fine. They are objects. This is part of the game. It's okay to call out to a strange woman on the street. It's okay to accost someone because that's just part of just being a guy. Boys, it's like the classic expression: boys will be boys, and that girl's just being slutty.
Well, but. At what part do we promulgate? What part do we promote that in our social? The Kardashian of the world, the rap video of the world, the social cues that children grow up with encourages those kinds of things.
Well, then that's maybe where I start to go. And this is where I'll tap into your kind of libertarian spirit. Is we have to start as a society drawing the line, saying, no, I'm done with this. I'm tired of this. I'm not going to put up with it. And not just
give it lip service.
Not just give it lip service and not wait until the day when, well, now that I have a daughter, I'm really concerned. It's like, no, you need to imagine not just that everyone's your sister, everyone's your daughter. Everyone's a fucking human being. Treat them like a human being.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's like the golden rule on crack, and
And so, if you want to say that really the prevention of this violence is not in teaching girls how to keep from getting raped, but rather to teach little boys how to respect the girls in class, I think that you are dead spot on.
yeah,
I think dead spot on. I think that is where the education goes wrong. We're teaching defense as opposed to preventing the offense from starting. Right? We
Right.
teach little boys to be as offensive as we can possibly teach them to be. We tell them that it's good because you're being aggressive. And great, go after them. Girls want you to be aggressive. But we need to create a bit more of a societal norm of men not being so overtly, forcefully aggressive on
Yeah.
those same things.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there'll probably be people out there watching, reacting, saying, "How can you draw a line between, boys chasing girls in the schoolyard and what this guy in California did?" I draw the line saying he is the culmination, perversion, distillation
Yep.
of
those
something that
societal
we've-
problems.
of societal problems, which are unfortunately like it's the fact that they're not even problems. It's almost treated like societal norms.
It's societal acceptance of dysfunction.
Yeah.
It's
Societal acceptance of dysfunction, yeah. And that's why I'm hoping, and I hope it doesn't become like a Coney thing, a hashtag that's embraced for a week and then forgotten. I really
but you
hope-
know that social media is very
That's what
strong
makes me
at doing
sad.
that. They are very good
it makes
at
me
doing that.
sad.
They're very good at doing it. So let's move on to a new topic. Maybe
Sure.
one that's a little lighter, a little easier. So this past week, I went to Kansas, and I did sing
Why?
Carry On My Wayward Son. Would you like me to sing it now?
No,
Do you know the song?
I do.
You know it well?
I was in the band with you, man. Come on.
I'm just making sure. If everyone out there has not heard Carry On My Wayward Son, I will pause for a moment so you can YouTube it. That's enough. Okay.
Now that we're back, also, I need to make sure when I said that we were in the band, that wasn't to imply that we were in the band Kansas. But we were in the marching band that played Carry On My Wayward Son
That is correct. That is correct.
by Kansas.
By Kansas. By Kansas. So I took a trip to a small town in rural Kansas, southwestern Kansas, probably 45 minutes from the Oklahoma border. Shout out to Oklahoma if Oklahoma is watching now. Shout out to your friend in Oklahoma. Okay.
LD.
LD. What? LD.
initials.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, LD. Got it. So I went to this place, and it is an ethanol plant, right? But they call it an ethanol plant, but that's not really what it's there for. So they've made this big facility, and I say big, but it's a fairly sizable facility. And they've got two sections of the plant, right? Well, I mean, really, there's two main sections of the plant. So you got material coming in from the outside. They got material handling thing to move the biomass. And what they're doing out there is they're taking the leftovers of corn production from our nation's Great Plains heartbeat, making corn to turn corn into everything else. And instead of the historical way of turning that corn, the kernel, the stuff, the same thing that you could eat, into ethanol, they're actually producing ethanol from the stalks, the husks, and the bells. And the bells are the little part that's left over when you shuck off all the little corn kernels. The thing that's left over they call the corn bell. And so they're taking all those things, chopping them up, and putting them through a digester that basically turns it into, ferments it into ethanol. And so then that ethanol is then sold back out as ethanol, and then they took the spent part of that and put it into a boiler, and that they're actually taking and burning the leftovers of that plus some other virgin bells and husks and all kinds of other stuff. And they're going to be burning it, creating heat creates boiling comes steam produces electricity. So they use the steam a little bit to do some of their ethanol production, but most of what this facility is going to make money on is the production of electricity to put back on the grid. So the interesting piece of economics here is that the government subsidized the production of, or the construction of a facility to make ethanol out of something that's not very efficient to make ethanol out of. That it is then being, the byproduct of it is being able to make electricity out of stuff that they have in abundance out there. And they'll end up making money on the ethanol because they, or on the electricity, because they didn't have to spend all that money to make the power generation. So the government subsidized the construction of all this stuff in the hope that it's going to be some clean ethanol facility. And then they ended up basically financing a group to be able to make electricity for less money than they would otherwise.
That's a who, and I would love for you to tell me who the senator or representative of the House for that district.
I am pretty certain that there was somebody that was involved, but actually, they put it there for a fairly reasonable reason, and the reason they put it there is because there's actually natural gas reserves not too far from there. So the capital of natural gas in Kansas is Hugoton, Kansas, which is where this was produced, and so therefore the natural gas pipelines kind of go right through there, so they can easily pick up natural gas when they don't have corn husks, because the corn is only really available for 5-6 months out of the year, but it's real cheap when it is available. So that's my story on Kansas. Everything is flat there. Nobody drives the speed limit, and the speed limit is high to begin with, but everybody drives faster than that. I got passed by a semi on a 2-lane road. Right? So he pulls into oncoming traffic direction. I was going 75 in a 70 zone, and he passed me like I was standing still. Must have been going 90. I then decided to accelerate to stay up with him. He was probably going about 85.
Good Lord.
Semi and he was loaded down.
Yeah, of course he was.
So that's my Kansas story. Any questions?
I'm glad you're with us. I'm glad you're with us.
Yeah, but it was 105 degrees. One day it was 50 degrees in the morning and 100 degrees in the afternoon. Tell me that's not a swing.
Oof.
Yeah.
So
there's my Kansas story. That is my Kansas story. Do you have any things that piss you off, Tom?
I do, and I need to go grab a prop because I realize I have a prop for it. So hold on, just 5 seconds, audience. Don't make fun of my butt.
Oh my good Lord, look at that butt. Girl, look at that body. Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
If you keep singing, you're gonna be thinking that pisses me off. That shouldn't piss me off. So this is my semi-weekly, almost weekly bit called "Things That Piss Me Off That Shouldn't Piss Me Off." And the thing that pisses me off that shouldn't piss me off, because really it's a comic book, Tom.
Yep.
But this is issue 7 of Forever Evil. This was a long-running DC event that started, I think, a year ago, maybe a year ago and change. This was the main title, but it involved about 4 other titles. This was the final issue, which got delayed like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
During which 2 months that the other series basically gave away spoilers. Everything's fine, everything's finished, and I'm like, but I haven't read the last. What is going? Okay, I guess this guy's alive. You know, you're all back. What's the final story? So finally, after several months of waiting for this damn thing, this thing comes out, and all I can say is, I want the last year and change of my life back, DC, because this sucked. This was so. I had so much faith in this, and this pisses me off so much. It shouldn't piss me off because it's
a comic book.
It's superhero comic books, man. But I remember reading this. When did I finish it? I think I finished it yesterday, and I really kind of just went, "Really, really, this is it? Maybe it's 7 of 8, no, it's 7 of 7. That's it." God damn! I just wasted a year of my life on something. Because this is the comic book. The comic books, it's the equivalent of watching a television show.
Right. And you have to wait.
The season finale suck. This was my lost season finale.
Oh yeah.
Except I was spending money on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was my loss. So it shouldn't piss me off again because it's a comic book, but damn, I was pissed off yesterday.
And so that is another excellent things that piss Tom off that should not. So I guess I have one topic to leave you with this week. Apparently, I was educated before we started recording that Ben Franklin is a member of the same group that I am, which is that we should really live in a post-spelling world. Right? Mm-hmm. Spelling is just an archaic concept that doesn't really need to be practiced these days, in my book.
I don't know.
You should be able to convey your message, and as long as your words come across that convey your message, then it should not matter so much whether you spell it right or not.
Well, I don't think you and Ben Franklin are the exact same.
No.
Ben Franklin is trying to meet you halfway, and what we were talking about was, before the show, was I alluded to the fact that Ben Franklin, inventor,
extraordinaire,
polymath,
yes.
a true Renaissance man, one of his ideas was to, revolutionary idea, not only we're breaking with the UK and breaking with the government, let's break with the standards of the English language. Basically simplifying the system of spelling, really going to a phonetic system.
Right.
Getting rid of, PH and F can be the same sound. It's like, no, just have F throughout.
Yep.
Getting rid of silent letters. Getting, really moving to a truly, because if you look, that's the fascinating thing. So if you look at foreign languages, they don't do the silent letters.
Nope.
If you look at the Romance languages, all those based on the Latin Vulgate, they don't have, it's really, whenever you see these letters together, this is the sound it makes. End of story.
Yep.
Not, well,
this arrangement of letters always means this. Always
yeah.
sounds like this, always does this.
That's why I always say that, I think the State Department always said that the two hardest languages that they would test people on learning were English and Chinese.
Chinese,
The Chinese
not Russian?
languages. No, Russian's hardest. Russian is really kind of simple to write or speak because as long as you know the case endings, there's no order. You can put the words in any order you want as long as the case endings are proper. It makes hearing harder because you could basically start with the verb, then go to the object, and then end with the subject. Literally,
okay.
You could put. Whereas we're object or subject, verb, object.
Right.
Russian, you can do whatever order you want because the case endings imply who's doing what to whom.
Wow. That makes it complicated to think in Russian.
It makes it very kind of free. It makes it also really great poetry.
Yeah.
This is also the nice thing about Russian poetry is because you really aren't fixed by sentence structure so you can allow for the poetic flow. That's why Russian poetry is the best. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you can understand it, Russian poetry is the best.
Exactly.
Speaking of Russian poetry, is that Michelle Lynch that joined us?
Our little poet of the night.
The poet of the night.
Yeah.
With blackness behind her.
Sorry, I'm in the dark. I just got back from X-Men.
Oh yeah? How was it?
Oh, it was good. It was
Okay.
good. A lot of backstory. Yeah.
All right, so back to Tom. So Russia, but they go back to Chinese and what now?
Chinese and English, or the Chinese languages and English being they're ranked 5s. Like French and Spanish are 3s or 2.
Right.
And on the scale of 1 to 5, the ease of learning. But
Wow.
English, and mostly, because the Mandarin is character driven, it's a very kind of hard, and it's also it's a vowel intensive rather than consonant intensive language. So
And it's pronunciation intensive. So if you say the same word 3 different ways, it means 3 different things.
Yeah. Whereas what makes English so hard is all those bizarre rules that keep changing. Yeah, we have a messed up language. We're mutt people here. We have a mutt language.
Yeah.
So Ben Franklin was trying to fix that. Ben Franklin was trying to make this mutt. He was trying to spade or neuter.
He's trying to make
This mutt.
this dog hunt.
Try to make this dog hunt.
That's right. And that was going to be an American language. That would be great if we had American. So we could look at the Brits and go, yes, but you don't speak American.
Then truly there would have been American language.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't have too much else that I'd like to share. I'd just like to say thank you for everyone for joining us. Our numerous viewers that I have shown up on our Memorial Day show.
Huh.
There is a very significant number of viewers that have joined us throughout this show and would like to thank
Yeah.
them all for their time. Yes.
Did you do this on your account?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, he's just showing it to your friends.
No.
Your dad's watching, isn't he?
No. We got a lot of viewers. I'm just saying. Just saying.
We got to go through your account from now on, then.
I don't know. We're gonna have to do something. But I've got some ideas to share with those in the party.
Excellent.
All right. So I'm gonna take it off air, and we will see you 6 days from now,
Wow,
where we
yeah.
discuss the topics of your. Unless you had anything you wanted to discuss, Michelle.
No, thank you, though.
Okay. All right. So long. And for this week, we will say you don't have to think like me.
You don't have to think like me.
You don't have to think like me.
Okay, but we do ask that you, on your own and of your own volition, think. See you next week.